Yeah, this is about changing the status of Israel's Supreme Court from several sides. On one side, if the Supreme Courts will rule something that is to the dislike of the government, they can override it by an override clause that is actually being debated right now as we speak and will probably pass. On the other side, a new bill to appoint judges in a way that is to the personal choice of the government, and another bill that doesn't allow the Supreme Court to disqualify basic law. This is a semi-constitutional law, and there's other suggestions that are on debate right now as we speak. So two of those suggestions just passed on Monday. Another one or another two will pass today, and this is changing Israel's democracy overnight from a liberal democracy to something of a semi-dictatorship where the executive power, which is the government, controls both the House, the parliament, and the judicial system in a very clear way. They appoint judges to their own likes and so on. So,
yeah. So it's almost controlling the political agenda by appointing judges to suit them. Israel has held dear the separation of powers of the judiciary and government, yet there have been protests on both sides. So there is support in some circles for these changes.
Actually, I would say there weren't any protests on the side of changing Israel into a dictatorship. We didn't see any people supporting that. There is only protest from the liberal side. The reason for that is that we just had election in November 1st. This government was chosen and got, a majority, 64 mandates out of 120. That's 50%, a little bit more than 50% in the parliament. So the side that won the election doesn't feel the urge to go on to the streets and protest because they are in power. But when you have a democracy and people are voting, it doesn't mean that you can change with your powers the administration or you cannot erase the separation of power overnight just because you won election. So we don't see any protest for the what we call now a judicial coup or judicial overhaul. We don't see any support for that on the streets. We do see a little bit of support for that in the public polling. And again, as I said, they did get the support of the people through the elections on November.
But not necessarily, as you point out, for these changes. Prime Minister Netanyahu himself has been barred from involvement in these reforms. But does it mean he isn't having a very strong influence?
Right, he is barred because he is under trial for 3 criminal charges: a bribe, a breach of trust, and fraud. The trial is ongoing in parallel to all of this. Israel's Attorney General said he cannot be engaged in promoting the judicial coup. He voted for the bills the other day, and today he's voting for them. But he's, some sort of giving speeches saying, "I'm not engaged in negotiation. I'm not engaged in promoting them. I'm only voting as the rest of the MKs are voting." You have to think if you trust him on that. I think some people don't believe he's not engaged. Most of the people think that he is the one who is pushing for those changes. But those changes will serve him personally, because once all the judges of the Supreme Court will be chosen by his own executive power, basically will be chosen by Netanyahu and himself, they will sit on the appeal that will have to deal with his, if he's going to be acquitted, no appeal. But if he's going to be convicted in probably in 2 years from now, those judges will be sitting on his appeal. So it's a very, very troubling step to the state of Israel. We've been a liberal democracy for 75 years. We never had anything like that, where our leaders are trying to just change the face of the country and turn it into something like Hungary or Poland or Turkey. And obviously, it's taking a huge toll on the Israel society at the moment.
Yeah. President Herzog has been trying to broker some sort of resolution. Do you think he's going to be able to sort of bring both sides together and prevent some of these significant parts of this legislation going through?
Right. So he suggested for the Likud and for Netanyahu to stop all the legislation and come and talk for 14 days. They refused to do it, out front. Now, the first step of the legislation has passed. So he said, I am still trying to get everybody to the negotiation table, even though it's past the first phase. I still believe in discourse, in talks. And now, after the coalition passed all it wanted in the first phase, the opposition says, you overstepped the president's suggestion. You did not come to the table and stopped all the legislation. So there is a mistrust between the sides. Plus, if I may add, people on the streets are not fully engaged with the opposition. They don't trust either coalition or opposition. And they are, if you talk to the leaders of those protests, they say, right out loud, we don't want to have any kind of this compromise. You cannot have half a dictatorship. It's either you have a democracy or you don't. If you want to negotiate our halfway dictatorship, that's not working for us. So you see, I suppose the demonstration will grow. Hundreds of thousands of people on the streets already. They might grow to 500,000 or so.
Yeah, so troubling. Really great to have you on, Tal. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.